Tonight on Compass, a journey behind bars with Rabina Courtin.
When we talk to some people about our helping people in prison, people are offended. For me, there's no difference. If the victims came to me, I would be working in exactly the same way.
And thank you for joining me. Tonight, an extraordinary insight into the life and work of Rabina Courtin. She's an Australian-born Buddhist nun, and she believes her faith can help transform people whose lives have veered way off course. She's a powerful personality, and tonight we follow her to 2 Australian jails, and along the way we chart her own transformation.
I'll never forget my first day in prison. When the steel door slammed shut behind me, my head was spinning. All I could think was, this tiny space can't be where I'm going to spend the next 10 years of my life. My mind just kept going, no way, no way, no way. For hours and days and months, I couldn't bear the thought. I just couldn't accept it.
You guys, you're called criminals, right? You're bad people. You're like the bottom rung of society. You know, you're a rapist, you're a murderer, you're a criminal. It's a huge label. What she's able to put across to people very clearly is that it is possible to transform all of that.
Buddhism has challenged me to the point where I now really do recognise that it holds the keys to free me from the mental prison that I've put myself in. I'm the prisoner and the jailer. But now I have Buddhism. It's my key to freedom.
Rabina Courtin is on a spiritual journey that has taken her from a Melbourne convent school to death row in Kentucky. This is the story of an Australian-born Buddhist nun who travels the world trying to transform the lives of people society prefers to forget.
I don't know if any of you were here when I was here last. When was I here? 2 years ago, I think. Were you here then? Okay.
Today, Rabina is visiting prisoners in Junee Jail in southwestern New South Wales.
Well, as Lee said, you know, I'm a Buddhist nun, as you can see, right, a Buddhist nun, and talking about Buddhism. So I suppose the obvious question is, what is that? What does that mean, you know?
Rabina lives in California, but comes home to Australia regularly. For prisoners on death row and those in medium security jails like this one, her message is always the same.
The thing that I constantly want to stress, because this is the thing that I'm seeing for my own benefit, being a so-called Buddhist, that what Buddha's dealing with is the mind, you know?
Drawing on Buddhist teachings, Rabina focuses on the mind's capacity to achieve peace through meditation, no matter where you are.
Buddha doesn't talk about a soul. This is where maybe one of the fundamental differences you can say about so-called Buddhist religion, that his expertise is in the mind, right? And you can say that what's called meditation, you know, this thing we often so mystify, all that is really a series of extremely practical and I could say quite sophisticated psychological techniques to help a human being get to know their own mind really well. So then I suppose you say, well, why would you want to do this? Well, I think every one of us, whether we're in prison or out, when we look at our lives, we can see that, you know, by not knowing what's going on inside ourselves until the words vomit out the mouth or until the fist does the punch, you know, you get into trouble in life. And I mean, so often when we talk to some people about our helping people in prison, people are offended. They're criminals, they deserve to suffer. For me, there's no difference. If the victims came to me, I would be working in exactly the same way. My job, it's not a political thing. It's not because I favour people in prison. It just grew, you know. I ran with the ball. And the real skill is to, on the one side, okay, I did do this, but it's not at the core of my being. And as long as you think it is, then you might as well give up trying to change. Because if you every day reinforce your view, I am bad, that action defines me, then you'll never change, you know. But if, on the other hand, you take responsibility and then say, OK, how can I change? How can I develop the other parts of myself? I think that's the key to success.
A Mexican teenager started it all. 11 years ago, he wrote to Rabina from inside a Californian jail.
He was 18. He was in this top security prison, full-time in his cell, 23 hours. He'd been in prison since he was 12. So, you know, from the ordinary conventional point of view, zero freedom. He couldn't wish for worse. He wrote, and I sent a book, and we developed a relationship. He became a Buddhist. And then I think within a year, there were 40 people I was writing to, all just word of mouth. And so it's grown from there.
Rabina began meeting with prisoners inside, and she soon founded the Liberation Prison Project, a spiritual lifeline for inmates. Today, it offers Buddhist books, tapes and teachings, and writes to prisoners in jails across America, Europe and Australia.
What steps and actions should we take then to achieve enlightenment or being, a follower of this Buddhist philosophy?
I understand.
You know?
Well, OK, let me put the question back to you. Let's say I'm talking here about football, and you'd never heard of football, let's say. So how would you answer that question? What would you have to do now to become good, become like, I don't know, who's the best footballer? I wouldn't know. Barry Hall, if you're a Swans barrack. I mean, you guys are probably rugby or something. So you get my point here.
Yeah,
so what would you answer? You answer the question now.
I'm
saying to you, how can I become a footballer? What would you say?
Study the game, obviously, the rules of the game, and practice the fundamental skills that are involved.
Yeah.
You know?
And find really good coaches.
Yeah.
And find other people who are really good at football and hang around them as much as possible.
Yeah.
And keep at it and have confidence and know you can do it. Exactly, that's the answer.
Answers are what Robina Courtin spent most of her earlier, at times troubled life, searching for.
I was born in Melbourne, December 1944, the second of 7 children, Catholic family, and kind of crazy, chaotic family. We were sort of quite poor. My mother was a musician, my father was a bit of a journalist, and my mother sent us to Catholic convent.
From an early age, Rabina was closest to her older sister, Jan.
Obviously a year ahead, or I think I might have been 2 years ahead at one stage, and we were both at boarding school at the same time, but she loved being at boarding school. I hated being at boarding school, but she loved it because it allowed her to get up early, go into the church on her own, just, pray and do whatever she felt was the appropriate thing as a Catholic young girl.
From the time I could remember. Little girl, loved God, loved Our Lady, loved the saints, yearned to be like them. I wanted to be a priest, but I think I was so little that I didn't understand intellectually the reason why I couldn't be, so I figured, all right, I'll be a nun, And I was 12, I was on my knees begging my mother to let me be a nun like St. Therese of Lisieux, my little hero. She became a nun when she was 14.
Rabina was full on, really wanting to achieve everything that she believed in. She was just very determined and, really wanted her own way.
By the early 1960s, Rabina's conservative upbringing would prove no match for her restless energy.
When I was about 19, I think I made a very conscious decision to say goodbye God and hello boys, I didn't have much guilt. I liked my Catholic upbringing, but it was a new phase for me.
Rabina studied classical singing and fell in love, but soon left it all and moved to London with her sister, the first of many turning points.
We started to become political and left politics to do with the Black Panthers and the Black American movement. And then we became feminists, and we became radical feminists, and we were known as the two sisters. We were literally the sisters, and we used to run all sorts of things for the radical feminists and went on demonstrations and all the things that one did in the 70s. Going to London, it just opened up a whole range of issues, and we felt very strongly, specifically about the Soledad Brothers, which is an American group of prisoners. We actually started up with another colleague a movement to try and help people to become aware of their plight when they were in prison. So it's sort of interesting that now Rabina's working with prisoners who've done the whole circle. Yeah.
If I look back in my life, I wanted the truth. I wanted to question. I wanted to analyse. I wanted to rip things to pieces and understand things. And that's what led me through the various political phases. I wanted a world view. But I'd find contradictions. I'd find things that didn't work, and then I kept moving.
Rabina moved to New York, studied karate, and then came back to Australia, where an accident literally changed the course of her life.
She helped a woman push a car that had broken down, and the car ran over her foot. She was laid up. She had to sit still, which is very difficult for Rabina. And someone had suggested that she go to a great place up in Queensland to rest. And there was a meditation centre there, and so Rabina went.
In a rainforest just north of Brisbane is the Chenrezig Institute. Founded in 1974, it's one of the oldest Tibetan Buddhist centres in the Western world. Here, Rabina found what she'd been looking for.
The part that totally appealed from day one was that Buddha would demand that we don't believe a single word he says. Buddha would demand that it's up to me to make it my own experience, to think about the meaning of life, which is exactly what I wanted. But the part that also was marvellous, there was the devotional aspect, and I had plenty of that as a kid. That suited me, the human heart part, but also just the wish to be happy, and there was somehow not a contradiction between these. And I found that they all came together in Buddhism. And so far, that's how I still feel.
Rabina immersed herself in the study and practice of Mahayana Buddhism. A year later, she travelled to Nepal and at the Kopan Monastery in Kathmandu began her ordination. She took her final vows in northern India.
It was a logical next step for me. And what that represents for me is this capacity to really involve my life in thinking about these things and analysing and progressing with it. Not just, gazing at my navel, not in a centred way. I mean, for me, the Buddhist one gives me clear kind of ability to understand myself so I can be of benefit to others, be useful in the world. Where we are...
So, working in prisons has become a natural extension of her philosophy. Through Buddhism, prisoners can find freedom, in the mind at least.
Do you want to do it just for 3 minutes, a 3-minute meditation? And it's nothing kind of holy. Some Christians think you open up to the devil if you meditate, but if you think like that, you don't need to do it, okay? But all you're doing is you're sitting with yourself for 3 minutes, okay? So I'll show you how to do it. Basically, what you're trying to do is you've got this busy head, okay? It's like a room full of 100 people, all chatting away, and you're dying to hear what everybody's saying, and you're racing about. We spend our whole day like this. So we're not going to ask them all to go away. Let all the people shout and yell, it doesn't matter. So let all the thoughts come and go, it doesn't matter. So what you're going to do now is you focus all your awareness strongly on the sensation at your nostrils as you breathe in and out. You just feel that. Take one more breath and you'll feel it, okay? That sensation. Just the breath. We're done? Ready for lunch?
Lunch, yep.
Okay, we're all going to have lunch?
Please.
So our contact details are on there.
Oh, yeah?
And it's full of stories from other practitioners in prisons across the world.
These visits are a starting point. But the heart of the Liberation Prison Project's work lies in the personal letters it sends and receives.
While it's an amazing opportunity to have a visiting monk or nun come in, the continuity is quite difficult because often prisoners will be moved on, and so it's a really good first contact. And then once they have our contact details, then they can maintain contact through writing.
Well, how many letters are we getting from prisoners these days, every month?
We're getting on average between 35 to 50.
Okay.
And how many correspondence teachers do we have in Australia now? Because I know in the States we've got something like 200, but we need some more, you know. So what have we got?
In Australia, the Liberation Prison Project has about 20 Buddhist teachers writing to prisoners in jails across the country.
Our first letters can often come from a place of great despair, and I mean, for example, one inmate wrote to us. He'd actually attempted suicide, and it hadn't worked. So afterwards, another inmate approached him and gave him a book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he read through that and just cried and cried and cried, and then wrote to us.
A huge number of people have no one and nothing. No one and nothing. And so the work we're doing, this personal communication through letters, it's the most precious thing because sometimes we're the only person in someone's life.
It's 2:30 a.m. and I'm wide awake once again, doing battle with my mind, and I can't find any peace. I've been coming to jail since 1991. Everything's a mess. I realise that I can't go on coping the way I've done in the past. That's why I've turned to Buddhism, because of the psychological benefits that I see in it.
So if a person's full of low self-esteem and deep depression and want to kill themselves, having one person whom they receive a letter from, oh my goodness, it's a difference between life and death, you know. The job of the correspondence teacher or even the visiting teacher is to guide them skillfully according to their needs. This is really crucial because it's that one-on-one contact. These people have no one. So I've seen, for example, if we go into prison and I go to teach a group and then I return 6 months later or 3 months later, there'll be no one the same. They've all been moved to another prison. You know, with our 250 volunteer teachers, and we're growing all the time, correspondence teachers around the world, that one person can move prisons 10 times in a couple of years, or he has a constant. He has this one person. So that person becomes like their spiritual friend. That person guides them.
It's working on transforming the mind. So it's giving them the tools, providing them with methods to actually look at every single situation that's arising in their mind and to use that as their meditation. It's not that you have to go off to some holy place and, you know, put your hands together and feel good. You're actually dealing with really messy stuff. And if that means that you're being locked in a cell, that's what you deal with, that's your practice, that's what you work with, and that's what you transform.
As I said, Buddha says, don't believe a single word I'm telling you. Think about it intelligently, analyse it, internalise it, and find the truth of it for yourself. This is the one.
This week-long Buddhist retreat in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney is testimony to Buddhism's growing appeal.
That's it, come here. So Kate, you want a name? Yes, thank you. Okay, come on, we'll give Kate a name.
Today, Rabina is giving these devotees new names for the next phase of their spiritual journeys.
All right. Okay, you okay? Okay. Thupten Jampa. Jampa is the name of Maitreya, the future Buddha, and he's the Buddha of love. So Jampa is Tibetan for love, loving one. Okay? Thank you, Leslie. Sweetheart.
These events also provide opportunity for Rabina to introduce her prison work to the wider community.
You know, wherever I go normally, if I'm in India or Nepal or Israel, wherever I go, what I like to do is buy about 400 postcards, and then in the group we've got, we all sign a little bit and we send them to our prisoners. And I can't describe, certainly the ones in the US, they haven't even been outside their own suburb, you know. So they get a postcard from a foreign country. This is more exciting. I can't tell you them getting hundreds of letters. I mean, it's just so moving. I was amazed. So I do it wherever we go. So we've got about 400 postcards here. I bought the postcards. So if anybody, we've got the list of prisoners. We've got a bunch in the States and a bunch here. So if anybody would like to be involved in this, take 5 or 10. If you can't afford the postage, you give the cards signed and written back to Aileen. You with me? And then pop them in the mail. Would you like to be part of that? Yes. Okay.
That last postcard session too that we sent out, I got a response from a fella called Raven Jones. He was so moved by getting this postcard from Australia that he drew this beautiful calligraphy with my name, and it was all these little Buddhas and flowers and all sorts of things in it. Have you seen that? It must have taken him hours. And then recently he found out that I was Irish, so he sent me an updated one. And he's got all these little shamrocks in it. Yeah. So you're going to write an individual message for each one? Yeah. Well done.
It's the human contact that makes all the difference. If you're in prison, you're already the scum of the earth. You have no body, no one to turn to. And very often, you've never heard one good word about yourself in your ears, in your life. So we've often found we will write a small note when we send our first book, and we will say, "Dear Fred, we're happy to hear from you. Let me know what I can do for you." They write, they say they burst into tears. They couldn't believe a person who's never met them is being kind.
I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your letter. The feeling of your acceptance fills me with overwhelming emotion, as it's difficult to find acceptance within myself. Other people's acceptance of me has usually come at a price. Once they know of my crimes, their perception changes and they move away in disgust, although there are some who don't, and they are rare.
Next stop for Rabina on her Australian visit is Long Bay, the maximum security jail in Sydney. Her guide today is a former inmate who now works on the front line with prisoners.
It's probably with great pleasure that I actually introduce you to Venerable Robina Courtin, who is a Buddhist nun, obviously, and she currently works in the States and works with guys that are on death row at San Quentin Prison and other prisons within the United States, and she's the director of the Liberation Prison Project.
Well, I want to sing a little tiny prayer first, okay, in Tibetan. But like I say, don't get all holy just because I say the word prayer, because very much the approach in Buddhism is that thoughts really do count. And so you could say that really prayers in Buddhism are like aspirations, sort of positive statements. So this little prayer that I'm going to sing is really just expressing an altruistic motivation, a reason for us all being here together for this little period of time here. The
men in this group are among some of the country's toughest criminals, and we aren't allowed to show their faces. Many have been dealing with drug and alcohol addictions. They've come to hear Rabina today by choice.
These things, I think, you can call it Buddhism. I mean, Buddha didn't invent this stuff. He just kind of ran with it, you know, because this is the substance of Buddhist practice, knowing your own mind, you know, being your own therapist, and recognising that we have got the power to change ourselves, regardless of how lousy life is. And this is the tough part, but every one of you knows what I'm talking about. Every one of you knows. Every one of us knows this, you know. And it's a tough one, because we're so full of hurt and blame, and we have had lousy lives, and people have badly treated us, and things have gone wrong. So you've got to be so courageous, you know, to say, OK, that's true. Meanwhile, what can I do with it? What can I do about it, you know?
She's dealing with a lot of people who've got incredibly berserk, crazy, wild energy, and they've acted on that energy, and that's what's gotten them into prison. So what she's able to put across to people very clearly is that it is possible to transform all of that. And she's a very grounded, practical, living example of that.
How long did it take for you to get over the confusion of searching your own mind? Like,
for me, I'm a bit of a maniac, okay? And I'm a bit sort of determined to do what I want. So luckily, everyone's got their own life, I wanted pleasure. I was into sex, drugs and jazz, definite. But as soon as I got too kind of miserable, I was off. You couldn't see me for the dust, you know. I couldn't stand the misery. I never wanted husbands. I never wanted houses. I never wanted possessions. I never wanted children. That's my style. But in a way, that's been the saving thing for me, because I've always wanted to pursue, I mean, it sounds noble to pursue the truth, for God's sake, you know, but I sort of mean this, you know, and to really try and have my freedom. So the problem, I think, is nothing wrong with wanting to have a wife and 2 kids and a picket fence. Go for it. But if once you get it, and then you start the jealousy and the anger and the pain and the blaming, you just sit in a sewer all your life. Do you understand my point here? And this is what's so scary. You're pursuing this ideal happiness, but then she turns out you're sleeping with your best friend. You go crazy, you want to kill her, you're back in here again. So we've got to have the courage, is what I'm saying. Whatever it is, you've got to have the courage to know that it's more...
All Buddha's saying, you know, it's not rocket science. All he's saying is, when you work on your mind and you take responsibility for your anger and your jealousy and lessen it, which is a brand new concept to us, guess what? As I said, you're going to feel better. You'll feel more calm and relaxed and peaceful and kind to others and more forgiving. My goodness, that's all we want, you know. It's all we want.
Are you peaceful within yourself?
Well, I mean, all I can say is so far so good, you know. And if not, what you're doing for 30 years isn't working, you're pretty stupid to keep doing it, aren't you? Bashing your head against a brick wall, you're kind of dumb, you know, which was what we do, unfortunately. You understand my point?
The people who are in prison, if they do have interest in something like Buddhism, it's a very fierce interest, very intense interest. I know that a big thing I'm finding talking to a group of prisoners, it can be much more intense and more questions and really more intense because they want to put all their minds into it.
Negative actions.
These prisoners are close to their release dates and are preparing for life on the outside. For some, this can be a bigger challenge than being in jail. Almost half will fail and end up back in prison within 2 years.
Thank you for your words of encouragement. Your friendship and support mean everything to me, as I've found peace within myself that's never been there before. And it's been because of the compassion that I feel when I read your letters. I'm in prison now, but not forever. Now it only looks like I'm in prison.
Buddhism gives them the tools also to recognise that coming back out into the world is difficult, is challenging. But as long as they've got the inner resources to actually face that, then they're fine. They're able to meet what, you know, the challenges that they face.
People who've got out of prison have given it up. Well, it's not confined to people in prison. You know, it's inevitable. It's a very hard thing to continue to discipline your behaviour and your mind. But also lots of good examples of people who have really succeeded.
I try not to think about when I get out. It certainly will be challenging to go from being told how and when to do everything, 3 square meals a day and a set routine, to being self-sufficient and independent.
Thank you very much. Okay, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
My main wish always is to communicate with human hearts, and at the end of it, for them to walk out with the thought that I've got some human qualities and I can change and I'm not defined by my negativity. That's my main wish.
Okay, Haris. Lots of that. Paragalo. Okay, there you go.
Buddhism is teaching me to look at everything that occurs in my life with a different view than I'm accustomed to. I'm the creator of all my own suffering as well as my own happiness. I'm so relieved that Buddhism is a part of my life. Buddhism has given me dignity, courage and honour.